So mental health itself, everyone has. It's something that
Yeah.
everyone has, and it goes up and down. But it's about how we can sort of balance it to improve it in day-to-day life. That is really important.
So welcome back to another episode of Music for Mental Health. And today we have a very special guest, Shantanu Kundu, who is the founder of the Be Free campaign, which is all about breaking the stigma surrounding mental illness, and is also a very talented musician.
And thanks for having me. And you're way too kind, I'd say.
Well, you're also award-winning, but we'll find out more about that later on. So, Shantanu, tell us a little bit about yourself.
I'm a third-year medical student at Liverpool, and on the side I do a bit of music and a bit of mental health charity work. So that's sort of what I've been doing over the past couple of years. And yeah, I think that's really a bit of a small summary, isn't it?
I know that you're really pioneering advocacy for mental health over the last few years, and you've won awards for the Be Free campaign. So tell us a bit about that.
Yes, yeah, so I think that sort of stems from the need to change mental health in today's society. If you look outside and look at, especially in our community, you'll see a lot of people just really downplay mental health. A lot of people say it's not really a thing. And so the whole idea of the Be Free campaign came about sort of breaking down that stigma and starting the conversation. And now over the past few years, it's sort of moved into this charity that also looks at preventative medicine. So looking at how we can prevent the onset of mental health conditions through, well-being enhancement and sort of promoting mental health from an early age.
Yeah, I think it's very much needed, and especially now during the pandemic with increasing isolation, anxiety, depression, things like that. We're seeing that a lot more in our GP consultations. How did it all start for you?
So for me, it's been quite a weird journey. So in school, it was a tough time. I think school nowadays is quite bad in terms of the environment. There's a lot of sort of toxicity within school environments. And then I also had a few sort of issues going on in terms of my own sort of image as well. So I had a skin condition, I still do, called vitiligo, which sort of started that mental health sort of dip for me. And that's when you sort of realize, you sort of understand a lot more about mental health, I think. And you understand what it is as a concept and how sort of devastating it can be to one's quality of life, and indeed life as a whole. And so that was sort of the journey. And over the past few years, it's gotten better, but it's also gotten worse in some ways. And so I think that's sort of mental health for you. It goes up and down. And so mental health itself, everyone has. It's something that everyone has, and it goes up and down. But it's about how we can sort of balance it to improve it in day-to-day life. That is really important.
Yeah, and well, absolutely. And I think even my own journey, my personal journey with anxiety, depression, things like that during medical school, you just looking back, you see how it was really kind of really deep valleys and high peaks and things like that, and triggered by certain stressful situations. And it's about equipping people with the tools to recognize it consciously and put a word to it and identify how they're feeling. When did you start to turn to creativity?
I think around 4 years ago, I think it was when it sort of. I was never really that musical when I was super young. Like you see a lot of musicians nowadays, you'll see they start at the age of 3. For me, it was like, around the age of 14, 15. I just thought I'd start singing, see what would happen. And lo and behold, it was terrible at the beginning. Like I had voice memos at the time, and they were just properly out of tune. There's no sort of structure to them. And I couldn't play guitar at the time either. So it was all something that was quite new. So then I picked up a guitar. It was like a cheap £20 guitar, which is like, for kids. I was like, look, we may as well start somewhere. And so I started sort of teaching myself how to play this £20 guitar. And then it got better and better. And I think with a guitar, it's an instrument that sort of, you can learn a few chords and then you can play a few things. So it's terrible at the first to sort of get into, but once you get into it, it's quite quick in terms of how quickly you sort of pick it up. And that's when it sort of started getting more serious. I think songwriting then became a tool that could really impact your own mental health and support it. It became a sort of outlet for you to express your emotions, and something for other people to also to relate to. It became something that people can be like, okay, that person's gone through that, and then this song really connects with me, and sort of, how can I use that song to help my own mental health? So I think music is powerful in two ways, in both the creators aspect and their own personal well-being, but also sort of the mass effect of music in sort of promoting mental health and helping with it.
Yeah, so thank you for sharing your journey there. With your music, I mean, it's very the lyrics for the track that we're going to play later, it's called Ashes. They're very thoughtful. Was there any story behind that in particular?
Yeah, so it's quite an interesting one, because it's sort of the whole idea of, so it starts off with it's like a river in your veins. So for me, it was always the idea of the Ganges. So if you look at the Ganges in India, you'll see sort of ashes being thrown into them, and it was like a place to be. And so for me, it was like, okay, let's sort of encapsulate that into a song and talk about people's loss, because there were some sort of friends in school that I'd lost in terms of death, and that's sort of, so you sort of think, okay, how can I sort of make the song about that? And so yes, it also started off with a picture of the Ganges, and then it became that sort of song that looked at sort of death, but also sort of uplifting from that, or how to move on from it. And this idea of grieving as a process rather than a thing that ends. It's something that you sort of never finish.
I think it's a good time to play a little bit of it, and then we can have another chat about it then. Is that okay?
Yeah.
It's like a river in your veins. Don't let it out, just let it in. Don't lose you now. In the smoke, in the water, I see your candle fading out, burning out, blow it out into the wind, into the water. Hold me now, I can't go. Help me now, before you go into the ashes, into the ashes, into the ashes. Oh. Your mirror in the place.
I love that song. I think it's such a powerful track, and the way it's arranged as well, with that lonely build-up and that powerful drum kit when it comes in, it's really, really cool.
It's an interesting sort of story to that, because it never had that chorus at the beginning. It was almost just like that subtlety of it's like a river in your veins, and then it's never had that build-up. But then you have a sort of writing session, don't you? So I was sitting there writing it, and then you have the session, and afterwards you'll be like thinking about the song, listening to those voice notes that you make on your phone, and then it sort of comes, oh, let's have a big build up and sort of play around with it. And that's when I think that's when a song goes from just an idea to a creation. Is that sort of time you get after. It's a golden period, I'd say.
Well, and your voice as well. It was such a surprise when I first heard your voice, like many months ago, when you first sent me some music, and I heard your voice, because I've spoken to you before, and I wasn't expecting your singing voice to sound like that. I don't know. I was just so moved by there's a rawness to it. There's a real authenticity to your voice, which is powerful, and I think you have to keep singing. You have to keep putting more stuff out.
Yeah, I think that's really important right now, isn't it? Just to sort of keep it going and sort of, just creating things, because you sort of, I think lockdown sort of, it's hard to create experiences for music. I think, I think music is very, it's based on experience and based on life, and so if you're stuck in a house all the time, it's hard to experience much, isn't it? But I think that's when you sort of, you can really feel different things when certain events happen.
Yeah. How's music and playing your guitar and singing helped you through the lockdown period?
I think it's something that you'll pick up the guitar, you'll be like, okay, I'll do it for 5 minutes, then I'll get back onto my main tasks. And 5 hours later, you would have written a song, maybe recorded some random things, and you're like, okay, we're here. And that's the beauty of like playing guitar and singing, is that, you know, the time flies, and it sort of helps you through that, because it doesn't feel like, you know, it feels like an outlet, but then somewhere you can just like relax and be yourself, really, which is a nice experience.
I've always felt like my guitars are my friends. So it's like you're having a conversation, you're catching up with an old friend, and just happen to be recording the conversation, which is cool.
I think that's what's the beauty of it, isn't it? Because you can come back to a guitar after 3 months, but it's still for the same, won't it? You'll still have that sort of grasp of it, because I don't know, I always have that connection to it in that sense. You know, you can never lose the music from it.
Yeah. So I was just intrigued to find out more about the Be Free campaign. So what inspired you to start that up, and what have you been doing with the project?
So it was more sort of my own sort of downfalls in mental health, and you sort of see the gaps in the system, and you see the sort of hurdles. For me, being in an Asian community, if you have any depression, anxiety, it would be like, well, how can you be depressed? You know, I had it worse. When I was, and it's just that fact that, you know, it's identifying that mental health is a thing, looking at how we can improve it, and then young people's mental health in particular in today's society is so massively underfunded. I mean, if you look at primary care, I know you work in, and then you'll see, you know, a lot of the time it is literally antidepressants, because there is no other option. You know, the time it takes to go to any therapy is just so long that you need to have some other thing in the sort of midst of it. And I think that's where the system needs to change. And so the Be Free campaign aims to sort of do that. It works with young people, doing mental health workshops, working around the country with different schools, community organizations, and alternative provisions, sort of delivering that education. And then on the sort of national level, we work on policy and looking at social media and how we can improve mental health and how it's perceived in society. So we work with a lot of influencers and celebrities, sort of promoting mental health there. And so it's been quite a lucky year, really. So Boris Johnson quite happily sort of sent us a lot of recognition and feedback on sort of our charity and how important it is at the moment. And for such a big public figure to be talking about mental health, and, you know, he talks about the stiff upper lip of British people and how we need to break that. And I think that's something that people will then think, okay, if he can do it, why can't I?
It is about the people with influence and the reach to make a noise which might be louder, to break that wall and break that stigma and break that silence. And part of one of our goals is to create a collective in the musician community to create some new music and collaborations on this foundation of improving mental health. So I think it'd be really great to have you on board with that, Shantanu.
Definitely. Love to. Yeah, we'll love to.
So what's next for you and the Be Free campaign?
I think next is just trying to carry on what we've been doing, and sort of pushing it even further. I think right now with another lockdown being announced, it's about how we can support people during this lockdown, because you know, it's basically a year now that a lot of people would have been stuck indoors for a long periods of time, especially those with shielding. It would have been literally 9 months out of the 12 that they would have been inside. And so it's about how we can support this mental health right now. And so showing people that it's okay not to be okay, and where to go if they do need help. And so there are services out there that you can really approach. And
where can we find out more about you?
So you can find out more about the charity on befreecampaign.org, and you can find more about myself on Instagram at ShantanuKND, and my website, shantanu.kundu.com.
Do you have any new music in the pipelines?
In the pipelines, yeah, we've got quite a few tracks coming up, actually. So we've I'm actually moving a bit into different territory. So we've got one coming out which is like a EDM pop track, and so it's probably like electric music.
Join us next time for another episode of Music for Mental Health. We've got one left of I think we've got 2 left of the season, and they're really great guests as well. So we'll see you next time.